Namaste and good morning, everybody. We'll start with the prayers. Om Gururu Brahma Gururu Vishnu Gururu Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Now 3 times Mahamrityunjaya mantra. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Welcome everyone. We'll start with the chanting of the forms of Rama. So what I will do here is I will chant one row at a time and you repeat after me, and after that I'll chant the whole table and you can chant along with me. Okay? Ramaha Ramau Ramaha Ramam Ramau Raman Ramena Ramabhyam Ramaihi Ramaya Ramabhyam Ramebhyah Ramat Ramabhyam Ramebhyah Ramasya Ramayoho Ramanam Rame Ramayoho Rameshu He Rama He Ramau He Ramaha. Then I'll chant it all together and you chant along with me if you can, otherwise you can just listen. Ramaha Ramau Ramaha Ramam Ramau Raman Ramena Ramabhyam Ramaihi Ramaya Ramabhyam Ramebhyah Ramat Ramabhyam Ramebhyah Ramasya Ramayoho Ramanam Rame Ramayoho Rameshu He Rama He Ramau He Ramaha. Same thing now we'll do for Dhatu Rupa, verb conjugations for Gam. So first I'll repeat. I'll chant one row at a time. You repeat after me and then the whole table. Gacchati, Gacchataha, Gacchanti, Gacchasi, Gacchataha, Gacchatha, Gacchami, Gacchavaha, Gacchamaha, Now the whole table. Gacchati, gacchataha, gacchanti, gacchasi, gacchataha, gachatha, gacchami, gacchavaha, gacchamaha. Okay, so this is the way to actually just keep chanting and repeating, and slowly you will be able to memorize and understand both. Make sure that you keep the meaning in mind when you are chanting the table. So a bit of an overview from the last week, what we did. We did the declensions of the word Rama. Before that, I just want to take you the type of words in Sanskrit. So always remember that there are only 3 types of words in Sanskrit. Nominals, which are declined, which are declined. Verbs, which are conjugated. So nominals which are declined means they will fall in the table of 8 by 3, like Rama. Verbs are conjugated and they will go in the table of like gum, 3 by 3. And indeclinables, they do not change their form. So no matter whether you are using a first singular, plural, masculine, feminine, which person, first person, second person, third person, doesn't matter. Indeclinable, the form remains the same. Some people consider indeclinable just as another form of the nominals, but I just wanted to have the difference clear here, that you will have the words in Sanskrit which change the form based upon the nominal table. You will have the words in Sanskrit which change the form based upon verb table. And you will have the words in Sanskrit which do not change their forms at all. So all the words are actually, so we have pretty much covered, if you look at, we have already covered nouns, the table 8 by 3 for nominals. We have covered for the verb. And we know the example of something indeclinable where it doesn't change the form. I told you that there are these main elements of Sanskrit grammar, and out of these 3, we'll cover the first 3 in this course for beginners, more detail. And we have had one class for each of them. So one class we had for Sandhi, one class we had for nominal forms, and one class we had for verb forms. So if you have come so far, you have understood the basic concepts and basic structure of Sanskrit language. Now it's a matter of adding a few details, and we would do a little bit more practice on these concepts, and I'll tell you a few more details. But that's the basic structure actually. So when you see a Sanskrit text, let's say words in Bhagavad Gita, then first thing is that you want to split the words to understand that what are the individual words. And then you identify the verb forms and nominal forms. And of course, indeclinables as you get more knowledge of how to. And once you identify those and identify that which, in case of nominal forms, which case and which number, and in case of verb forms, which person and which number, then you would actually have a very good idea of what the words would mean. So Sandhi, Shabda Rupa, Dhatu Rupa. These are the words. So we will review the last week what we did here. So we covered this table 8x3 table. And we have put the class notes. So please do refer to those class notes, quite detailed actually. So just want to tell you that the first case is Prathama. The first literally means, the Sanskrit word literally means first. It's nominative or subject. So whenever you see these words appearing, they would appear in the sense of subject. Subject is in Sanskrit karta. Karta means the doer of the action. So as I told, the verb is the central thing in Sanskrit grammar for a sentence. A sentence would have a verb, and the whole sentence would be actually built around that verb. So verb is kriya, the action, the activity, and the subject would be the doer of that action, the karta. Then the second case we saw the object. So what is the object of the verb? So if, say for example, if I say gam is the verb to go and Rama is the subject that he is going, then the object would become, say for example, he goes to school. So school in the form of like Vidyalayam would become the object. So Ramaha Vidyalayam Gacchati. Instrumental, by or with. So if something is being done by Rama, then I'll use the Ramena, the third case. For example, if I'm going by car, then car would become an instrument, and I would use Vahanena. There is also a word called Saha, which is used in instrumental, along with instrumental. So if I'm going with Rama, then I'll use Ramena Saha Gacchami. So in sense of together, going along with something. If I'm playing with a toy, then I'll use the toy as an instrument. But if I'm playing with my child, then most likely I and my child both are playing with the toys. Then for the child I'll use with Saha. Dative, Ramaya, Chaturthi. So this is used in the sense of for. For example, I'm giving a book for Rama. So in English generally we translate it as two. So when you translate the Sanskrit sentences into English, of course follow the proper grammar of English. But as you understand that a language cannot have a word by word translation. So in Sanskrit, that case would be fourth case. Ablative or Panchami, the fifth case. Ramat. From Rama, something in the sense of separation. So you would use in case of the tree, leaf falls from the tree, the fruit falls from the tree. That would be the fifth case. I am taking the book from Rama, also the fifth case. So in that case, Ramat. Genitive, the Sashti, the sixth case. It is used in the sense of, in the sense of possessive. Ramasya. Of Rama. So Rama's brother is Lakshmana. We saw that example. So Ramasya Bhrata Lakshmana. Or somebody asked last time, by the grace of Rama. So again, of Rama. So Ramasya. So that would come as Ramasya. Locative. It's simple. It's actually quite indicative. Like locative is location. So location is in or on. So here we use the word Rame. And here it could be used in the sense of, you could have something like in the person of Rama, like a shirt is on Rama, or it can also be used figuratively, like lot of good qualities reside in Rama. And then vocative, when I'm calling somebody, when I'm addressing somebody, hey Rama. So in that sense, I can use the vocative case. So hey is just for emphasizing. Even if the word just Rama appears in the sentence, it would mean it's a vocative case. Vocative in Sanskrit literature many a times is not considered a separate case simply because it's considered a variation of nominative. Only the first form could be different. The dual and plural will always be the same, no matter what the base word is, Rama. So the base word here is called Pratipadika in Sanskrit, or in English we say base word. So base word is never used in the sentence. One of these forms are. Okay. So this is what we covered in the last class. And I gave you the exercises to identify the nouns from Gita so that you can understand that what we are doing, how it is relevant in Bhagavad Gita. And remember, so far we have only covered one akaranta masculine noun, akaranta, this one. And even with just one noun, you saw that we have so many words in Gita that we could identify in the verses. That's a very common type of noun, akaranta, the ending in akara. And it's simple actually. It's considered a simple table. Whenever you see something ending with a, this table would pretty much be the norm. There would be very few exceptions. So with one, think of the power of this structure, that with one table you can actually have the access to millions of the forms which for the words which end in akara. So there are so many nouns, adjectives which end in akara, and you can identify the pattern for all those by just getting familiar with one table. And that's the power of structure. So please chant this table as it's one of the common nouns, common forms. And we'll see more forms like feminine nouns, neuter nouns. But total number of such tables aren't actually all that many. And once you start getting the feeling, and you will see, oh, this is what Ramayana is used, means it should be used as a by something, or by Rama, or like we saw in Gita, those who solve the exercise, the one of the verse had Drupada Putrena Shishyena, means by your Shishya, who is the Drupada Putra, who is the son of Drupada. Shishya is the disciple. So Shishyena, by your disciple. So we could immediately see the sense which this word would be conveying. And then when you read the translation, you could actually see that how this thing is actually all being put together. Now the prepositions I have put in here for you to have this is a fairly good mapping, and most of the times you would be able to make sense of these prepositions, these meanings. However, in some cases, because English has so many prepositions, you would find that Sanskrit has to manage with these many cases. So sometimes there would be a little bit of a ways that Sanskrit cases are used, and that you will get more and more familiarity as you get exposed yourself more and more to Sanskrit literature and see how the cases are being used. So one thing I remember, and this is related to how the prepositions are used. So in my childhood, when I was learning English, the English was like a subject for us. So the instinct was to actually have using the translation. So Hindi has something like preposition, which we call postposition, because preposition in English means it is positioned before the noun. That's why it's preposition. Like of Rama, from Rama. So it's preposition. But in Hindi, it's postposition. It's actually posted after the noun. So, but there is still sort of one-to-one mapping. And then I was reading this sentence in English, he is suffering from fever. And that in Hindi, the mapping was perfectly fine. From fever, बुखार से, वो बुखार से परेशान हो रहा है. But when I read the sentence, he died of fever, that just completely threw me off, because in English, in Hindi, we still use the same preposition as the translation of from would be. So I did not understand why somebody suffering from fever but died of fever. Why not died from fever? So, but this is just the peculiarity of language. You can't literally translate any language word by word to another language. So that's language has just evolved actually. And in English, somebody suffers from fever but dies of fever. Doesn't dies from fever. Same way in Sanskrit, you will find that some cases will see the prepositions, the cases being used, where you will think that, oh, it should be the second case used, why the fourth case is being used, because that's how the language is. And one thing in Sanskrit I find in that sense a little bit peculiar is the root word kup. And kup means to be angry. Sorry. So kup, to be angry, you would generally in English would say he is angry on someone, he is angry with someone. But in Sanskrit, it is the fourth case which is used. So if somebody is angry, somebody on somebody, that it would be fourth case. So if father is angry with the son, pita putraya kupyati, putraya, fourth case it will come. So just a few peculiarities that way you will notice when you read more of the literature in Sanskrit, that in some cases you will say why it is fourth case, because that's how the Sanskrit is. This particular root takes fourth case. Another is English generally will say the husband begets the children from his wife or with his wife. But in Sanskrit, it is the seventh case, the locative. So, patihi patnyam, it will become the locative case actually. Jan, the root for that in Sanskrit is jan. Jan means to produce, to beget. So this is used in the seventh case generally for in terms of begetting the children from a woman. So you will find a few such things. Sixth case is also used, particularly in the plural, as among. So among so many things. And if you remember, those who study Gita, in the 10th chapter, Lord saying multiple times, I am this among this, and this is the sixth case plural he is using. So I'll show you some examples there in Bhagavad Gita that so this verse, if you look at, oh sorry, So this one, Adityanam aham Vishnu. I am Adityanam aham Vishnu. Among Aditya. So Aditya is a name of a deity. So among that particular class of deity, there are 12 of Adityas. I am Vishnu, Lord is saying. So Adityanam, like you can see, Ramanam, Adityanam. Okay. So that is used among. So among Adityas, among 12 Adityas, I am Vishnu. That's what Adityanam aham Vishnu. Similarly, the fifth case is used in sense of comparison. So if you say, compared to Rama, Krishna is taller, if you have to say this, then you will use Rama. Compared to Rama, Krishna is taller, then you will use the fifth case. So like this, you will see some more usage, but this is a fairly good way to start and understand this, the prepositions corresponding to the cases. And those who are from India, they know Indian languages, they can more easily map the Sanskrit cases to the way we have the post positions in Indian languages. So one of the question is that why I have used Ramena and like Ramanam, and just we saw the example where it was Adityanam. So why it is Nakara and with dot below, as you can see, and here and with dot below versus simply Nakara like it's happening in Raman, Nakara. So there is a rule, of course, and that rule is pretty extensive. It's called Anatvam. So I'll pull that slide here. Okay, it is now showing here. I had put in. Oh, here it is. So this is Natvam. So Natvam simply means that the quality of being Anakara. In terminology here, particularly we refer it Anatvam when Nakara changes to Anakara. So the Panini has actually specified 39 sutras just to describe this phenomenon when Nakara changes to Anakara. And he has covered all the rules, exceptions to those rules, exceptions to exceptions, and whatnot. We don't have to go through, of course, all that. For our purpose, if you understand this much, these 4 points, you would be okay. So first of all, it happens, changes from nakara to nakara when it is a single word, not a combination of 2 words. So if there is a sandhi, 2 words are coming together, this rule does not apply. Here Ramena is 1 word, so it will apply. The second condition is nakara. So actually consider this, the original, actually the suffix is actually nakara, not nakara, like nakara as in n, nakara without dot. So when so by default is nakara, and it becomes nakara based upon certain conditions. So nakara, when it is preceded by these four, so rukara or long rukara, refa and shakara. When it is preceded by any of these letters, then this rule can come into play. So here we see Rama. So Rama of course has the word Ra, refa. So that's why this rule comes into play. Then another aspect is between these letters and nakara. That means between these letters, refa. So consider just like these three are very similar. So like the sound of ra, rokara or refa, and then sha. So these are the two basic sounds actually. So between these letters and nakara, so these letters will come before nakara, of course. Nakara is preceded by them. Then between these letters and nakara, these letters are allowed to intervene. So if any other letter is intervening, then the rule will not apply. So we have these, so vowels. So any of the vowels could be intervening. Yakara, vakara, hakara. Then another way we actually say in Sanskrit the letters called kavarga. So I'll take you to the alphabet once more. And you see the consonants here. So we actually have the alphabet in this fashion. Ka, kha, ga, gha, cha, cha, ja, jha, na. Ta, tha, da, dha, na. Ta, tha, da, dha, na. Pa, fa, ba, bha, ma. So that's how we go. So I put it in the alphabet in this fashion to tell you that whether it is a hard sound or aspirated or not. But generally, you will read it like this. So this whole letter, which is the throat, the whole characters are 5, it is called kavarga. Varga means grouping, and kavarga means grouping start with ka. So when we have to refer to these 5 letters, we can, instead of enumerating those letters individually, I can just say kavarga. Kavarga, when I say kavarga, means I am referring to these 5 letters. Similarly, I can say chavarga, that means I am referring to these 5 letters, and so on. So here in our example, kavarga, these 5, and pavarga, pa, fa, ba, bha, ma, these 5 intervene, then it's okay. So what does it intervene mean? So like if you look at here, we have the word Ramena, right? So now considering that this was by default nakara, okay, so we'll say default is nakara. Then refa is coming in before that. So refa is coming before that, that means the second condition is fulfilled. So first of all, the first condition is fulfilled. It is a single word, not a combination of 2 words. Then the second condition is fulfilled. Nakara is preceded by refa. Then these are the intervening letters. Akara, makara, ekara. In Devanagari also we can actually write the same way. Akara, makara, ekara. These are the intervening letters. So akara is a vowel, so that condition is satisfied. Makara is coming from this pavarga, pa, fa, ba, ba, ma, makara, and ekara again is a vowel. So that condition is satisfied. Because this condition is satisfied, the nakara changes to lakara. I hope it is clear to you. And then the fourth condition is nakara is not the end at the end of the word, and that's why you see the second plural Raman here all the conditions satisfy the first three, but the nakara happens to be at the end of the word, and therefore it will not change into anakara. So when you make the forms, then this rule, of course, you have to understand and this rule. But if you find this rule very difficult, you can ignore it for now, because again, as our main purpose is actually to read Sanskrit, as long as you understand that sometimes these two words, so this rule applies only to the third case singular and sixth case plural. It will not apply to any other form here in this table. But this rule would apply in many other Sanskrit words, not just verb forms. This is a generic rule in Sanskrit literature. So we will see many other words, including the verb forms, where you will have. So those who have studied Yoga Sutra, and there is a word called pranidhana, Ishwar pranidhana. So it coming from the same rule, nakara. So the actual word is ni. Ni is the prefix there. But because of this rule, it becomes ni. Pranidhana, Ishwar pranidhana. So you will find this will actually be, this rule would be applied in many cases in Sanskrit. But here in our table, it is only applicable for third case singular and sixth case plural, because these are the two places where we have nakara coming. So this is the rule, anatvam. It's called anatvam. Simply means the quality of changing from nakara to anakara. We'll include it in our class notes, so you don't have to necessarily copy everything which is on the screen. So hopefully this is clear to you. And now we will actually take a case and just write the forms, a new word, and write the forms. Okay. So I'll take the form of Partha. I'll take a word called Partha. Partha is the name of Arjuna, and in Gita this word comes a lot of times. It's coming, actually his mother's name was Prutha. So as per Sanskrit rules, the child of Prutha is called Partha. So it's used for Arjuna quite a lot in Gita because Arjuna is being addressed, but in Mahabharata it is being used for, she had three sons, Yudhishthira, Bhima and Arjuna, and it's used for all the three sons, Partha. So Partha is a noun ending in akara, so it's an akaranta noun, and we'll see that how can we form another table based upon the table of Rama which we had. Okay. So it will be very similar actually. So it could be almost like as if you can just find and replace. You will see that it is very easy to create another table using that as a template. So I can actually have the first case. So I'll write it here itself along with this. So first let us just check whether Ratvam will apply in Partha or not. Okay. So Ratvam will apply or not in Partha. So Partha has Rakara in the word, Refa, sorry, not Rakara, Refa. So Partha has Refa. So the second condition is satisfied. Now we'll see the third condition whether it is satisfied or not. So between, if I have to put in the third case, it will be Parthena. So the Thakara is actually intervening. And Thakara is not one of the allowed words, allowed letters here. So in that case, this rule will not apply. That means it will become Parthena. It will not take Anatvam because it is actually intervening by Thakara, as you can see, after the Refa, and it will not apply actually. So Parthena, it will remain Parthena, it will not become Parthena. So even the two conditions are applied. So I'll take this word Partha here side by side so that you can see that it is really easy, and I'll just remove this. So here I'll just write in the IAST Roman script and you can follow in Devanagari easily. So Ramaha, it will become Parthaha, then Parthau, and then Parthaha. So you see, it is very similar. You have one table, you actually can prepare the table practically for any word which is ending in A. And then second case, in the same fashion, it would become Partham, Parthau, Parthan. Then third, as we discussed, it will not become Anatvam, so it will become Parthena. Then Parthabhyam, and Parthaihi. Then fourth, it will become Parthaya, and this word would be familiar for those who study Gita, because the very first word of Gita Dhanam, Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata. So Parthaya, for the sake of Partha, for Arjuna. So Parthaya. Then Parthabhyam, same form. Parthebhya, then Parthat, Parthabhyam, Parthebhya, Parthasya. Sorry, I am not putting the akara. It should be everywhere. Parthasya, Parthayoho, Parthanam, Parthanam. No nakara here. And then seventh case, Parthe, Parthayoho, Partheshu. and then He Partha, He. So this one, He Partha. So I'll just write Partha because actual word is only Partha, not He Partha. He was just for emphasis. So Partha, Parthau, Parthaha. So this word appears a lot of time in Gita, Partha, because Lord is addressing Arjuna as Partha. So you will find a lot of times Partha. This simply means Hey Partha. So as you can see that it's very easy to form a table, and just like I explained you to the concept of Natvam, changing Nakara, you will also see in some forms, not in the Akaranta forms, but in some other forms, this actually takes the word Su, like Sakara without dot. And here the rule is simple, particularly for our scenario, that if it is followed by vowels other than Akara or Akara, then it becomes Shu, Shakara. Otherwise, if it is Akara or Akara, then it remains Su. So we'll discuss that. I just want to give you a heads up. When we discuss those forms, we'll discuss this rule. But in case of Akaranta forms, it will always be Shakara, just like this. So with this, I'll just take any questions which are related to just this topic for now. And so I'm just going to the chat. Please send your questions. Just please relate it to this nominal forms. So the question is, if I want to write Arjuna's name, can we use the format? Yes, you can. Arjuna is also a Akaranta noun. It's ending in Akara. So question is, Thakara of Partha, is it spelled like the English Tha in Sanskrit pronunciation? Yes, that's correct. So what is the difference between Jan you mentioned to the Jan which means people? It's coming from the same root. Jana, which is people, which is Jana, Jana, it actually is coming from the same root. But Jan as a root, it means it's a verb. It means to beget, to produce. On the book, it says the rule you may just explained for Nakara and Nakara dot is Sandhi. So Sandhi is not only a for rule for joining words together. Yes, you can actually say that as a Sandhi. Sandhi is actually not for two words, it's for two letters actually. So Sandhi, when two letters come together, then Sandhi takes place. So in this case, you can call it a Sandhi also. If it is okay to call it as a Sandhi rule. But just understand the conditions here, that even if there is a gap, so generally in Sandhi, two letters have to come close together. So if you go by the very technical definition of Sandhi, then it cannot be called a Sandhi. Because in Sandhi, the two letters have to come together. In this case, there could be a gap. So in that sense, it's not a Sandhi. But I understand in some books they write it as Sandhi, and it's okay. Somebody is asking, for example, Dhritarashtra Vacha, no point under the letter or no line above a letter, what to do? I'm not understanding this question. Michael, Baba, if you can just clarify this question, that would be better. So, the rule of Nakara, I hope it is clear. Anatvam, I'll just explain once more. Somebody is saying, even I was searching in the internet, I found no explanation to write a point under a letter and not description to write a horizontal line like that long, or you have a tip or if a note for this problem. There are many sites actually. After this, we'll have a small break, and after this, I'll actually give you a site where you can type those letters. There are many such. These are all Unicode characters. So if you are looking for to type directly in the word, there are options. Or if there are even sites where you can type and take it from there. For our Sanskrit purpose, I suggested you that tool, Sanskrit, just because it supports both the script, it's free, and for long test it's preferable. Then Swamiji, for previous session, as you gave the example of Vahanena, so does the Ranatvam rule not apply? Yes, Vahanena Ranatvam rule will not be applied because there is no Refa or Rukara. Remember so just again to actually take that Ranatvam rule once more here. So these 4 conditions have to be satisfied. So we are using it in a single word, so that is fine. In particularly when making so that part you can consider it's done. The 4th part also we know that we are only doing it for the 3rd singular and 6th plural, so that is also taken care of. So only these 2 you have to see. So first one is it's applicable when it is preceded by Rukara or Refa in that word. So in other words, the Pratipadika would have any of these characters. So if Pratipadika like Vahana doesn't have any of these characters, that's a done thing. You don't even have to worry about it. So only when the base word has one of these characters, then only you have to worry about this rule being applied. And then you will check against the 3rd condition, that between that Refa or Shakara or Rukara and between Nakara, what are the intervening words, intervening letters? If they are other than vowel and Yakara, Vakara, Hakara, these 5 called Kavarga, these 5 called Pavarga, if there are anything other than this, then again it will not be Nakara. It will remain Nakara, like we saw in Partha. The intervening letter was Tha, and Tha is not in this list. So this condition, both conditions have to match. First of all, the Pratipadika should have Rukara or Refa or Shakara, and also this condition has to match, that between the Refa and Shakara, Rukara and Nakara, intervening letters could only be from this list. Okay, so then only, so when you see the example, you will see that it's pretty clear actually. It's not so difficult. Somebody is asking, why do we not put the dot under N in the 3rd case of Partha? I just explained. I hope it should be clear to you. Then somebody is asking, okay, can you please make sentences with all the forms, like Ramaha Vidyalayam Gacchati, then Vahanena, then 4th and 5th. We'll see. I'll give you a beautiful prayer which actually has those examples. So we'll see those cases. 6th case plural in the new table, we do not change in N in Parthanam. Correct. We do not change. I just explained why do we not change, because intervening letter is Thakara, so this rule of Anakara will not apply. So what does per mean? I'm not sure what does per mean. What is your question? It's will page. Please clarify what your question. What does par mean? I do not understand what does that question is. So these are the questions. Okay, somebody is saying got confused with the Sandhi explanation. Can you please go over it again? Just that whether this Ranatvam rule called Sandhi or not, it's just a matter of terminology. Don't worry about that. So the rule is this. I said technically Sandhi happens when 2 letters come together. In this case, it happens even when 2 letters are not together. And therefore, technically it's not a Sandhi, but many people classify it as under a Sandhi rule. And it's okay. We are not discussing so much about the terminology here. The main thing is that you understand the rule and where is it applied. Somebody is asking, what is the difference between Vibhakti and Karaka? Okay, we'll discuss that later if time permits. It's a little bit of a technical concept in Sanskrit. Isn't it depending more on where the tongue was left? Pankaj is asking. So, yes, as I told that most of the rules of how the sounds change, they have some sort of a logic behind it. It's not always intuitive. So it may be, but you cannot really figure it out by just noticing the position of the tongue. It would be very difficult. You better make sure that the rule is also in place and you understand the rule. Can you please give an example of rule number 4? I gave the second case plural. It is Raman. Nakara is at the end of the word, and that's why it will not become Nakara. When I say Refa, what is the exact meaning? Refa is the sound of Ra. This one, third case, third letter here. This is called Refa. This is called Rukara. So Rukara is the sound of this letter. Refa is the sound of this letter. Shakara is the sound of this letter. Okay, I hope we are recording this session. I don't see icon saying meeting is recording. It is being recorded as a separate computer, but I'll also record here just so that you will feel comfortable. We will put the recording on the our repository, because all the recordings are being put there. Okay, the question was, what does Partha mean? Where did we get it? All right, so Partha is actually coming from Mahabharata. It is son of Prutha. Prutha was name of mother of Arjuna, one of the names. Again, her name was Kunti, but also Prutha. And as per Sanskrit rule, when you say son of Prutha, it's Partha. So that's how the word Partha is coming. Okay, so with these questions, I would actually now give you a little exercise, classwork. And the classwork is this. I'll pull out, and I'll also put this exercise in the folders, our repository. But I'll just explain to you what the exercise is. It's actually simple exercise. So that would be, so write the forms of Krishna based upon this table, Rama, just like I did for Partha, write for Krishna. It's also a name ending in Akara. So it's the same, it will follow exactly the same logic. Now, in the case of Krishna, would it have the Anattam or not? So we'll go back to our Anattam thing again here. So our word is actually Krishna. So think of it. I'll just tell you that what. So we have. So second condition is met. We have actually two letters here. So we'll take the last one, of course, because this word automatically covered. So Shakara is there. Then the third condition, whether it is meeting or not. So between Shakara and our Nakara, which will come after this, there is a letter called Nakara, and it is from the Tavarga, Ta, Tha, Da, Dha, Na, and it is not covered here. That means the Anattam will not apply. It will remain Nakara, Krishnena. So second condition is meeting, but the third one is not. So it will remain Krishnena, not Krishnena. So just be aware of that. So please write it, send it to us. Right now the time is 10 o'clock. We'll meet maybe like in 12 minutes, 10, 12 or 10, 15 if it is going to take longer. 10, 15, let us keep it 10, 15, and then I'll take the questions from the previous classes, as well as if you have any more questions, you can put in the comments. So I hope you have the table already noted. I'll put this exercise in the repository. Also, I'll have it displayed on the screen, so you can actually look at it and make a note. So with this, I'll turn off my mic and video, and please do this exercise. Okay. Welcome back. So I hope you were able to do without any problems this exercise. Pretty straightforward it is. As I said, it can technically be accomplished by just doing a find and replace also. But I want you to have some practice and some idea that how these forms are made and how they will be used. So Krishna, just one more thing, then you see that it is Shakara which actually makes the second rule applicable second in Anatvam. But then there is a, after that, this Anakara itself, which actually doesn't fall into the second rule. So the here Anakara doesn't come here actually in this rule. So that's why in case of Krishna, the Anatvam will not take place. So even though Shakara is there, which is allowing us to apply the Shakara is there, it is allowing us to apply the rule number 2, but because it is, if the Nakara would be after this and there is a Anakara itself, so it can be a bit confusing because we are trying to follow the Anatvam rule, and here Anakara itself actually is causing the rule to break because it is not in the list of letters in rule number 3. With this, I will actually take the questions from the class, and these are the questions which you have sent to us by email, sometimes in comments, and I discussed the 15 questions last time, and now I would take the other questions. So I'm just putting it up so that you all can see, and some of the questions are just comments. Some of the things we have already addressed, but there is no harm in doing it again. What are the particles? In Sanskrit, the particles are called nipata, and these are all indeclinable words. That means they do not change their form. They are in Sanskrit literature, if you go, there is a various category of particles, and there are about 200 plus particles. But something like cha, we already studied cha. Cha means and. Eva means like. Oh, sorry, I think I have to share the screen. Okay. Can you see the screen now? I had forgotten to share this screen. Sorry about that. So that's the particles. These are one of the categories of indeclinables. Does Sanskrit too follows the same way as Hindi or Malayalam grammar? It would be rather appropriate to say other way around, because Sanskrit is ancient and Hindi and Malayalam are derived from it. So Hindi and Malayalam may be following some aspects of Sanskrit grammar. Somebody then is writing, Swamiji, a phoneme is minimum sound unit in a language that has no meaning in itself, but which does change the meaning of any other sound it is united with. Whereas a morpheme is a sound unit which does not have meaning in itself. An example in English is the sound shakar, sa, s. By itself alone, it does not have meaning, but used with other words, it changes meaning, like apple, apples. Of course, the minimum sound unit with meaning is morpheme. So, good information. In Sanskrit, there is a branch called Shiksha. That's the name of the branch, Shiksha, that literally deals a lot with these phonetic sounds. That how these phonetic sounds are derived, how they are put together, how they separate it out. It is beyond our this beginner's course. But in Sanskrit, there is a whole branch actually of studying this sound and sound patterns. Pranam Swamiji, any recommended textbook? So that should be covered. We already have recommended textbook, and I have put it on the repository, the one which we are using in our course by Dr. Egenes, Thomas Egenes. Live chat with over 200 people will be havoc. It's very good the way it is. Thank you, Baba. Thank you. What is the vertical line or two vertical lines at the end of some lines of text? So, if you look at the verse in Gita, for example, you see there is a one vertical line and then there is a two vertical line. Generally, it would mean that a verse is like one line of the verse is complete, that is one vertical line, and the verse itself is complete, that is two vertical lines. So that's what they indicate actually. It's like a full stop. What are the rules to determine masculine, feminine, and neutral for declension of nouns? So I explained earlier, in Sanskrit the gender depends upon the word itself, and the best place you can find the gender is basically based upon dictionary. There are grammatical rules which determine the gender of a word, not the object itself. And sometimes you will have the same word being used in two genders. So, and sometimes the meaning would differ. Meaning could remain same, meaning could differ. So all those things we have to find out. There are no specific rules I can put together saying these are the rules for masculine, these are for feminine, this is for neutral. One word which somebody was discussing earlier here, Mitra. So I'll just tell you what that word is. It's Mitra. Now this is a word ending in akara, as you can see. This word, it can be both in masculine and neuter, but the meaning changes. If it's masculine, the meaning is son. If it's neuter, meaning is friend. So sometimes you will come across these kind of things. So like in one of the Vedic prayers, we say Shanno Mitra. That is Mitra's son. We are praying to son. While Mitra, neuter, it becomes, and the forms slightly differ in first and second case. When we discuss neuter, we'll see more of it. But I just wanted to tell you that in Sanskrit, there is no particular, I cannot give you a list of rules per se. It is, there are a lot of grammatical rules, and the best way for us to find out what is the gender of a word is to look up in dictionary. How do you know what the root word is? You know by practice and by exposing yourself more to the rules of how the different forms are derived, and then see those forms derivation into the actual literature. There's no shortcut there. How is Prathama called third? That I already explained, that Prathama Purusha. We have this called Prathama Purusha. It's coming from here, Prathama Purusha. It's called third person. It is just different terminology in different languages. Don't get confused. It is third person as we say in English. In Sanskrit, the word for that is Prathama Purusha. Can you explain singular, dual, and plural? Is it singular one, dual two, plural many? Yes, that's correct. Very good to use Gita as a reference. Thank you. Another, it is so great that you draw the direct connection between the grammar and BG, Bhagavad Gita. BG is generally the short form for Bhagavad Gita. This is exactly why we do it. As you just mentioned, thank you so much. Thank you. Learning to detect verb forms in Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful way. Will we do feminine nouns also? Yes, that is my intention. I hope we'll get time. I will definitely introduce feminine nouns. Whether we can go through all the forms, that will depend upon how much time we have. But I'll definitely introduce you to the feminine nouns and the table. I think I can hear the words in Sanskrit being stressed on the first vowel. Is that the rule? No. Sanskrit does not have stress. There were some stresses in the Vedic Sanskrit, but in classical Sanskrit, which we study, and except Vedas, all the scriptures are in that Sanskrit. There are no stress rules. There is nothing like you have to stress certain vowels or something. Then somebody is writing in Croatian, Serbian, Macedonian, and Montenegrin, the phonological principle prevails. So their corresponding spellings are phonological. There is actually no difference between the spell letter in the alphabet and spelling in the word itself, which sounds to me that these languages can also be sent phonetic. I'm happy to know that there are languages which can be called phonetic, and it's nice. Yes, they can be. In the above mentioned languages, there are no prepositions nor articles, but they are expressed in 7 cases. So it seems like very similar to what we are doing. Also, I can identify some sandhi similarities. So this comment was actually sent by a person who knows 6 languages, and he wanted to just draw my attention to the similarity. So thank you. And just one thing to tell you, because we are discussing the linguistics, that Sanskrit and basically all the Indian languages which directly have a connection with Sanskrit and European languages, they all are derived from the same family. So it's called Indo-European languages. And many people have actually found the connection between the words, that how the words in English appear actually from Sanskrit. So for example, mother, in Sanskrit the word is matru. It becomes in Latin mater, and then it becomes through some other modifications mother. And like this for father, for brother, for sister, and many other words. So because of linguists, those who study actually all this phenomena, they have identified that there is this Indo-European language family which actually has the common, which has a common parent. The only difference of opinion there is that that common parent, whether it is Sanskrit or some other language which was precursor to Sanskrit. There is absolutely no evidence found of any other language, but only in theory some people propose that there should have been another language. So Sanskrit could very well be the mother tongue for all the Indo-European language families. So including the languages which you actually talked about, they could be potentially coming at some point of time from Sanskrit, or at least some people believe that it was another language which they call Proto Indo-European language, which was the mother of all these languages. Either way, Sanskrit is the eldest, even if you don't call it mother, it's the eldest sister, and it has affected all the languages in that family in various ways. So that's why there would be many similarities. I have the book you recommended. Some letters of Devanagari alphabet are written differently here. For example, could you please explain which versions are more common and if one needs both ways of writing? Okay, so I'll pull up the book, Dr. Egenes' book. Is it right? No, here it is. This one. Okay, so this is the page actually, page number 71. He actually identifies in the book itself that there are other ways of forming letters which you should be able to recognize. So these are the ones which we use, the later form, not the, somehow in the book he has used the first column forms. I do not know why. They were used in very old books. Pretty much all the modern books, they use this form. There is not so much difference. One difference is in a, and as you see, based upon a, it is in akara also, as well as in okara and aukara, and then Jhakara there is difference, and Nakara. So essentially there is a, and Rukara there is actually not so much difference. You could easily use one for other. But Akara, Jhakara and Nakara, these are definitely different. I would recommend you use these ones, the second column. So this information is given on page 71 in Egenes' book itself, and you can actually use this one. That's what we are using. And that's what you will find in most books being used, unless you are reading something very old printing. I'm copying the verb conjugation chart for gum. Okay, so now we are out of time actually. So it's 10:32. So it's fine. We'll take these questions later on. I'll just see if anybody has asked me. Okay, somebody is saying mother madre in Spanish. So you can see from Latin it is coming to Spanish, and it is madre versus there is matre in Latin. Okay, so with this, I would just say the prayers and we'll close the class. Before that, I just want to discuss two exercises. and some people have mentioned that the workload is too much. I mean, it's a good thing that we at least did the 3 days a week instead of 6 days a week. It would have been completely, but now we have 2 days. So do whatever you can. If the workload is too much, as I said, we have covered the basic concepts. Just make sure that these basic concepts are clear to you, and then we are building upon details. We all have recordings of the class. You can always look at the class notes, which is a beautiful way of summarizing, and you can quickly get an idea of the whole class from the class notes. Yogacharya Amit Baba is actually putting those two things together in a very organized manner. So try to do as much as you can, but do not miss it. Do not like take a gap actually. So I'm sure if you persist in it, in effort, by the end of the course, you would have a fairly good idea that how to actually make sense of the words, how to proceed further in your studies. So there are 2 exercises for home I will be posting. Exercise 14. So this is basically 3 words. You have to write the forms, like same as Rama. And you have to see, but the third case, Nara, Ranatvam would apply, not in the first 2 cases. And then the second exercise from home is 6 and 7, lesson 6 and 7. So whatever we have covered, you should be able to read the lesson 6 and 7 from Thomas Egenes and do the exercise. So I hope that weekend would help you to catch up, and we'll have the prayers. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Have a happy Easter. This time God has given opportunity to stay more in silence and reflect within on the Easter. So reflect on the inner meaning, read Bible, read the sayings of the saints and sages, and hope you will have a happy Easter. Thank you.